Your loyal customers are going to be your biggest way to kind of fortress or your moat against competition. How are we using data? We have a model which is called recency, frequency and monitoring, RFM. So it's a very simple model but can be used very effectively. So you segment your customers on the basis of how recently they have visited your stores. So have they come the last 30 days, 30 to 60 days, so on and so forth. What's the frequency with which they are visiting and how much are they spending with you, right? Basis this RFM model, you can get an entire matrix right from your most recently visited high frequency, high monetary customers who are your champions to those who are likely to lapse out, etc. So you get an entire grid and you can make a strategy for every one of the cells in the matrix and everything would have a different objective. I think the problem in India is not data. The problem is application of data and you have to be really clear what you want from your data. In our case, we're very clear. We want to translate brand love to our loyalty program. We want to make decision making simple and therefore we have a hyper segmentation model. Our desire is to move to a segment of one so that if you're walking to the store, I should know what you're most likely to buy, but I should also be able to tease you a little to buy something that you would not and make the decision easy for you, reduce your time at the time of, reduce your time for transaction at the cost and make the whole experience more delightful because customers are not buying into a loyalty program, they are buying into the benefits they are getting and the brand.
I think I agree with what Deepa just said. So let me kind of continue from there a little bit about creating a culture of being data driven. And I think that's really important. Like how do you really kind of take it through? So one part is that it's really important that the leadership is really kind of bought into the importance of data. And that could sometimes mean that leaders have to be willing to put their personal assumptions aside if the data shows something else. And a lot of times that's really important that leaders are willing to be very objective and really look at data.
To really understand what consumer we are talking to when we are putting out content and which channel actually works best for which consumer. So normally when we are looking at social media, there are various areas that we look at from our product perspective as well as what timeline we are following for that product. And based on that is when we actually create content and put it up.
One is what I call the 99% principle. This is something I learned in my consulting days. Marketers and business entrepreneurs make the mistake of assuming that the poor consumer is thinking about your brand 99% of the time. You couldn't be more wrong, right? Even if the consumer is thinking about your brand 0.0009% of the time, you're winning. So the best storytelling happens when you understand what's happening in 99% of the consumer's life. And then you integrate your brand story in that in an authentic manner. That's number one. Number two, marketers get tired more easily of their brand and stories than consumers do. So we want change. Chalo kuch naya karte hai. But if you see brands have stood the test of time, whether it's Cadbury's or Titan, so many other brands, right? Because they've stuck to the same, proposition. They've reinvented the way in which they say the story. So those are the ground rules. We find that Gen Z is not really, they think they know it all obviously and they want a platform. They're saying, I understand digital far better than you, give me a platform where I can say something, right? So I think the role of brands is to create content that is UGC worthy. Millennials are saying, give me a fantastic experience. Okay, so that's what millennials love. They like a fantastic experience, they want to know a little more about a product. They want to understand the story behind it, etc. Gen X is kind of wanting to soak, I think, they are in a sense post adopters of technology and digital. They want to soak into what your brand story is, your culture is, your product story, how can I buy it, and they may need a little of hand holding. Because we are largely catering to millennials and Gen Z, our content tends to be one which is giving consumers a platform to create their own content. Gen Z is also very, very high on purpose, sustainability, etc. Luckily as a brand, because we believe in that, we also do stuff like that. But I think at the heart of it, it is really about understanding your audience. It is the basics. You know, I unfortunately don't have a fancy answer for this. It is the basics. Know your audience, know your brand, and then make sure that you do the best possible juxtaposition with fantastic storytelling.
Be open to experimentation in the beginning. I feel like authenticity and that genuine connection of that influencer has to be there with your brand, service, or product. And then the kind of content that follows through, I feel like that should kind of be relevant to their followers as well. At the end of the day, it's not something that you're just going to be posting on your own page. So if that's not relevant for their follower community, you're not kind of leveraging the fact that they have so many followers, right? I feel like when you're also doing influencer marketing, you kind of definitely should have a good mix of, micro influencers who also have like great niche, great engagement, along with macro influencers. Obviously, depending on the objective of your campaign, whether it's reach, awareness, consideration, or conversion. So I feel like if you have a full funnel of influencers, they can definitely drive those objectives clearly. And I feel like today, with a lot of tools that are available, you can easily measure the impact of such campaigns very easily. And even within ads on Instagram and social media, the kind of targeting you do has to be very specific, and you have to find innovative ways to kind of reach your own audience. Like, I don't know if you all are into digital marketing or something, but like just by changing an objective with the same amount of money, we changed the objective of campaign from conversion to reach, and we reached our audience at 1/4 of the cost with 200% higher conversions. So you kind of have to constantly optimize as per whatever the algorithm is moving to.
You can't just be driven by marketing if you're not providing that fantastic experience on the ground. All the money that you spend on experiential marketing is not. Now, when you're doing experiential marketing, there are 2-3 ways in which you can quantify it. So one, be clear what your going in metric or KPI is. Are you doing this for greater engagement, or are you doing it for transactions? The way you measure it is for engagement. You look at amount of time that somebody has spent on that space or that experience, and are they more predisposed to your brand after that? That's the way you can measure it. If it is transactional, it's very simple. I've done this, therefore, what's the ROI? Don't do it if it's not fitting into your brand philosophy, because one, you'll not be able to support it for long. Two, consumers will see through it. Do it only if you believe in it and you can sustain it, and less is more. This is not a fad that you just need to hop onto,
When you're talking as a brand that you believe in something and you're doing something, you have to have the backing to be able to talk about it proudly and say yes, and you should be able to show your consumers that you're doing this. So that then makes it more authentic, and that really makes it meaningful.
How we're trying to keep up ahead of competition is keeping our eyes firmly on the consumer. Because I believe if you only look at competition, you'll land up doing incrementalism. We're firmly keeping our eyes on the consumer. We're focusing on ensuring that brand love is always there in terms of what we offer in the store and otherwise. Focusing on innovation. We've launched masala chai, filter coffee. We've launched a first of its kind small cup size in India, which is called Pico, because we know Indians drink far less coffee than Americans, right? And we've completely rehauled our food menu. So I think the answer for us is consumers, like all of you, knowing what you want, innovating, being on top of our digital game. And I would also say partnerships, because in business you can't win alone. And I think Minari, Amazon does so many partnerships. She's talked about it beautifully with all the stuff that they've done for their sellers, and maybe we can talk about it more. But the fact is that you will need to have strong partnerships